I want some 3D, but also so much. It's a miracle I got our thing. I heard it. And I was like, I heard this is why I don't do
Yeah, you can either email or. Be all right. I'm gonna give people about 10 minutes. Then we'll do anything
There are so many
they need.
right, I know. What did you do when you I think it was just a perfectly like placed nail right there. All over the mic. Oh, yeah. Right there. Saturday, which will probably finish Sunday, so I'll drive home. We have to see for that.
Okay. So welcome. I know we have a few folks that are still trickling in and a few folks who are trying to get slides and anything else uploaded. So I wanted to go ahead and give everybody about 10 minutes to do anything that you want to do to prepare, whether it's getting things uploaded and sent to me, or let's like practicing, or anything else that you need to do to get prepared. Those of you that have emailed me your presentation, I pulled that up. So you still need to get that up. I'm happy to just get that displayed. And what we'll do is as we go through, we'll just go ahead and I'll pull up the things that you have sent me, and then the floor will be yours. So feel free to do anything remaining here. Other thing I wanted to let you know, hell hath frozen over because I finally got the room assignment for our presentation on Wednesday. So it's going to be in Badgley 146. So I'll send that to you as well. But we'll have that class meeting with ORA same time tomorrow, but it'll be over in Badgley 146. Or not tomorrow, sorry, Wednesday. Wednesday. Yes. The end of the term time gets weird. Sorry about that. those of you who just got in, I'm giving people a bit of time to get ready, and then we'll start at 2:10. If you have things to send me still, I will pull them up for you. Have received.
Did you receive?
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
It's. Lena. And Christine. So it looks like I have Christina, Kate, Gaia, Angelin, Kiana, and Nicholas. And then Rubidi is going to be using Zoom. Cool. So, welcome, glad to have everybody here. So this is our next to last class meeting and our chance to hear presentations from folks who were able to attend face-to-face. Ruby is going to be presenting in real time through Zoom, so we'll hear from Ruby a bit later. If you sent me any slides or material, then I have been able to pull that up or download that. So when you're up, we'll just get all of that taken care of for you. So as a reminder, you have 5 minutes and you have a minute of grace after you reach that 5. So I will use hand signals as you're going down. So I'll let you know when you have 2 minutes remaining, 1 minute remaining. This is when you use the 5 minutes. That'll let you know when you're at that place. After we hear from folks, we'll take a little bit of time to see if there's any questions, comments, thoughts that people would like to share. And then we'll move on. Just recommend that you double check that your audio is off on your phones or other devices. And no black coverages. I also, for those of you that came in a bit early, I just received word about our room for Wednesdays or a class. So that'll be over in Ashley 146. I will send a follow-up email that just verifies that location. There'll also be a Zoom link for that if you're not able to. Any other questions for we hear from our first presenter? Awesome. Well, Angela has bravely volunteered to be our first presenter of the day. So whenever you're ready, take us away.
Okay. First of all, just want to apologize for my voice. I'm losing it. But so my social movement is called Athletes Need Help. And so this social movement focuses on mental health of student athletes. And through this movement, it will work to advocate for athletes to get more support pertaining to mental health. But it will also work on sharing information on mental health services that are free and readily available to student athletes. And it will also work with providing coaches, athletes, and other staff members on ways to notice signs and symptoms of mental health issues, and also teach them how to point student athletes in the right direction and where and how to seek help. So why is this movement important and needed? So mental health issues are the top and most common issues student athletes face. Mental health issues are a common issue that they face due to pressures that they experience from school, athletic performance, and issues, as well as other factors like home life and personal relationships. And so according to the data that I found, 33% of college student athletes experience significant symptoms of depression, anxiety, and other mental health conditions, but only 10% of college athletes with no mental health conditions seek care from a mental health professional. And it was also found that suicide is the second most common cause of death among college students, which is why there's a need for us to be proactive about mental health treatment and to advertise the services available to them. So for this movement, the communication tools that will be used is social media pages. Social media pages will be put out on various platforms such as Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And through these pages, it will share information about the services available, how to support one another, and information about self-care tips to students. And there will also be flyers around campus showing information on where to seek help and how to help others as well. And in-person communication will also be taking place. It will be very beneficial for mental health providers that are on campus, as well as in the communities, to reach out to athletic teams to discuss where to seek help, how to seek help, and who to go to. And so the main recruitment style of this movement is social media, especially with the hashtag athletes need help. And through the use of this hashtag, we'll share information about services, mental health topics, and how to spread the word about getting athletes the help and support they need. And with the hashtag, you'll also be able to reach many different people, schools, and areas, which can help to advocate for others, for other areas, and make it known to the population that this is an issue, which can also lead to other schools implementing these ideas and spreading the word about the need for help and support. It will also allow outsiders to understand the importance of this movement and helps them to learn the importance of it. And so the first event that I thought of for this social movement is like a night for athletes that include like fun games and snacks to like help them relax from all the stress they may be dealing with. And activities will include information on ways to relieve stress and how to address other issues athletes may be facing. And during this time, there will also be information shared about where to find helpful information and where to seek or where to speak with a mental health professional. And mental health professionals from the Student Health Center will also be there to speak with the athletes and coaches and staff. And this will like allow them to learn more about the resources that they have and also help them to become more comfortable with the mental health professionals here, because sometimes it can be difficult reaching out for help if you're not comfortable with the person you're receiving help from. Yeah, that is my movement.
Awesome. Any questions, thoughts, or, oh, we don't need to, you're just fine. Any other thoughts, questions? People would like to say about this one? Sorry. So thanks for getting us started today, Angela. And I really enjoyed your presentation because I think that it did a great job of combining a lot of the different elements of kind of a movement or supporting what's clearly an important issue, promoting mental health, supporting students and student athletes in particular. And I really like the combination of styles of participation. You have this hashtag you've created and circulated through social media, but you also have how to do an activity that's more low-key and fun and designed to be inviting and supportive too. So I really think that that combination of different elements really comes together to make a really good way that this movement can happen in a really practical way and in a way that's inviting and supportive to the audience as well. So thank you so much for getting us started on that. All right, so second up, we have Christina. So your step up, and whenever you're ready, you can take it away.
Hi, so many of you know I am Christina, and the main portion of this presentation I did was on Indigenous awareness movements. So a little bit of background information that we may already know is that a lot of the Native American culture has been lost or murdered throughout history due to boarding schools. And for the main portion of this presentation, I will focus kind of more on the language and traditions, because boarding schools, there's kind of a lot of information that goes behind that. So for this one, I will focus on the traditions and languages. So for my create a movement, I will create a movement that involves public education for social change. What this will look like is it will be a public form of education in a public area, such as the Quad at Eastern Oregon University. This will spread and educate individuals about Native American language, traditions, and awareness. On the language factor, it will be teaching Chinook jargon, which is specifically the language that is used in the Confederate Tribes of Grand Ronde, which is kind of located more on the western side of Oregon. And it will also spread awareness and acceptability for the Administration for Native American Language Immersion Grant application. This is basically a grant that the Confederate Tribes of Grand Ronde has to educate their tribal members of the Native American language. It would also teach other forms of traditions such as singing, drumming, and dancing. And it will kind of mimic the form of what traditionally powwows look like It will just kind of overall teach the traditions. In addition, it will also spread the awareness about Native American days. Because being a Native American, I just found out that the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation is September 30th. And this day is basically a day to recognize people who have been through Native American boarding schools. And so I feel like even though that these days are National Awareness Days, they are not quite knowledge that everybody knows. So the genres of rhetoric that this will pull from, it pulls from the forensic portion because it focuses on the past, on what had happened, why are we here, where we are today. And as we know, the Native American culture was murdered within from General Richard Henry Pratt when he ordered the English to kill the Indian and save the man. It will also focus on the epidectic portion of rhetoric, which kind of allows it to form that powwow-like celebration within this movement. In addition, it focuses on the deliberative portion as it focuses on a place to start and a place to finish, for example, within language. Parts of rhetoric that will be used within this movement will be in the images. These images kind of speak for themselves, how the Indian was killed in the man. As you look in this picture, these are the same people. When you look in, well, they're kind of blurry on the screen, but as you look at these pictures, you can kind of see that they no longer had their long hair, which represented their wisdom and their culture within the Native American history. And they were no longer to dress how they pleased or wear their traditional headdress. They had to dress like any other white man during his time. In addition, embodiment will be used within this form of movement. In a large gathering, embodiment will be used in the form of the large gathering. For example, the space, taking up the space with people in the middle of the quad at Eastern Oregon uses a form of embodiment because it has each person's body to represent something that is going on, which is the education. In addition, it can also use other forms when expressing awareness. For instance, the absence within the people in these red dresses, or even the red handprint that symbolizes Native American missing and murdered Indigenous women. In addition, there will also be written and spoken forms of rhetoric. This is used in the public education setting, and this is vitally important because a lot of the Native American traditions have been spoken orally. They're not quite written down because the language has been lost over time. So this is really important because it kind of goes back to how Natives learned their history and how Natives can express their history to the rest of the people. In addition, this can be done with singing and drumming as it expresses. So why does this make an impact? This makes an impact because it allows people to learn about Native American language and Native American culture. In addition, it also spreads Native American awareness about the days. It uses use the public element to create a form of communication while also educating people on why the culture has been lost. And all in all, this would make the biggest impact because it is a large social gathering that can be loud and gathers attention because it is in the middle of the quad at Eastern Oregon University. And lastly, this makes an impact because it addresses the epistemic injustice throughout Native American culture.
Or feedback from
I really like how you kind of made it more of like a standpoint to where you wanted to bring it out to the public, because I feel like a lot of people don't get the opportunity to go to powwows to see Native American representation. And so I really think that that's really awesome, especially in a college setting where we're all here to educate ourselves and learn about other cultures. And so definitely bring stuff like that. I know that Easter used to do a powwow for Mother's Day, and that was always a really big event. So really getting that going again and bringing that to the public, I think that that's really awesome. And I think that that's a great way to like broadcast your social movement, just to give other people that opportunity that are part of that culture as well.
Thank you. And powwows are open to all public, if you ever wanted to join them. I said powwows are open to all public. I know they're kind of not necessarily as local as they're more kind of the western side of Oregon, but if you ever wanted to join one to kind of see that as well, those are open. But thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree. I really appreciated the focus that you had on the educational and awareness component and kind of spreading that information as well. And I think one strength that you've done really consistently, both in this presentation and again, throughout your participation in class has been your integration of the concepts and ideas we've been talking about in these really cool ways. Talking about epistemic injustice, talking about genres of rhetoric, talking about the use of imagery and public awareness. Like you're really able to connect these ideas, I think, in a really meaningful way to talk about what this is able to do. So, not only topically really important, but I felt like your inclusion of those examples really helped to see how that would play out. So really great work, and thank you for helping to educate us on that as well. All right. Steve, is this yours, Lindsay? Yeah. I'm just gonna. Okay. So Lindsay is our third presenter of the day. So whenever you're ready, take it away.
Okay, hi, I'm Lindsay. If you guys didn't know who I was, but first off, I just want to give like a little background as to like why I'm doing the movement that I'm doing. So I actually play soccer here at Eastern Oregon. So I am a woman who plays an athlete, a sport here, and so it's really important to me for there to be awareness about like the issues that go on in women in sports. So that's why I did what I did. So just a little background, but for my movement, I'm doing a boycott men's sports. And I'll get into it and explain what it is, but yeah.
Sometimes it does that.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Sorry. Okay, so what my movement is seeking to do is to bring more awareness to women's sports. I want to bring more awareness to equal pay, equal opportunity, equal conditions, and equal coverage for sporting events for women. That can be collegiate level, professional level, high school level, like all those, not just professional, because I think a lot of, like I know I did in my analysis essay, I only talked about professional women's sports, but I also wanted to talk more about all different levels in my awareness movement for this. So women are really underpaid and underrepresented in the sports industry. And even here at Eastern Oregon, even the women's soccer team, we get way less fans than the men's team do. And you see that through all of the sports, basketball, wrestling, all of them. So I just wanted to like give an example for that. And then also another thing is that women actually receive a lot less scholarship money than men do. Like my brother played college football and he was on, almost his whole team was on full rides. And then like his wife actually played at the same school, played women's soccer. And she told me that maybe one or two people on the whole roster had a full ride and the rest were like on partial scholarships and stuff. So it's just a huge clear divide about the inequality there. And I wanted to talk about that because it pertains to like a lot of people that go to Eastern Oregon. A lot of us are college athletes here. So yeah, I wanted to bring a little bit more awareness to the lack of scholarship money. And so how my movement's going to work is going to be to like not attend as many men's sports. Yes, it's important to support your friends and support like people that you go to school with or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's also more important to like stand up for what you believe in and stuff. So the only thing was don't attend one men's sport, but attend more women's sports. And then when you go to these women's sports, on the next slide, you see that I set up like a social media account, like a website or Instagram, whatever, that will tell you like a specific color that you're supposed to wear when you go to these sporting events, and then you post a picture every week and use the hashtag WISE, which is Women in Sports Equality. And then another thing that I was doing for my movement is creating a merch line where they can buy t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, beanies, whatever, that have like the logo WISE, hashtag WISE or whatever on it, that can help go to scholarship funds for women in collegiate sports. And then here's like my form of communication usually use social media. So we like spread all of the awareness and all of the information through social media like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And then this is just like an example, like little page of like wearing the color of like the day that you pick or whatever. And or whatever week it is, you wear that color and then you post a picture to show your representation and your awareness and how you want to help the movement. And then this is just like a little example of like a flyer or a post that we would post out on social media to tell you like the information, like wear pink to support your women this week. And then, yeah, just use the hashtag. And that's another thing I wanted to incorporate is the hashtag, because in my analysis, I found that like that was super important to social media, that it gets a lot of awareness. So yeah, and then those are my sources, but yeah, it's my social media. Yeah, thank you. Any questions, whatever.
Any questions or comments?
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciated the way that you, and I noticed this from some of the video presentations too, the like mock-up and example use of social media. I think WISE is a really clever acronym and really clever way to organize that as well. It's really memorable, it's well known. The use of something like a color, right, and invoking a different color each week. Really great ways of, really visually mapping out and making this movement happen. A lot of the use of simple, clear imagery, memorable, clear, easily conveyed movement, like symbols like that, I think do a great job of helping us to understand what you're advocating for and how you're able to use social media to do so effectively. So really great work in talking about this topic, engaging with this topic, and in using that supporting material to help you out in doing so. All right, so we have Elena up next. Yeah. Area.
Yeah, mine's a little bit less serious. it's a little more fun. But okay, well, hi, I'm Elena. This is my creative movement presentation. So you guys know what the thing I hate the most about LeGrand is? It's the snow. And specifically how terrifying it can be to drive in my cute Nissan Sentra once it snows here. So like most EOU students, I did not pick out my car thinking that I was going to be going to college in one of the snowiest towns in Oregon. On this chart, when it pops up, there it goes, you can see the different amount of snow in inches each of these cities get. As you can see, Portland has an annual fall of 2.6 inches, Pendleton has 14.8, and LeGrand has 23.2 inches annually. That is almost 9 times the amount of Portland alone. And I'm from Tacoma, so I wanted to add Tacoma on there too, so that you can see that I have very little experience with snow, let alone driving in it. As a freshman last year, with snow tires on my car, I was prepared, and I'm a good driver. I completely did a 360 on Island Avenue because of ice. I almost got rear-ended twice, and I got stuck in a snowbank. And luckily, both me and my car were able to drive away safely and unharmed. But that is not the case for everyone. In the US, around 24% of weather-related crashes occur on snowy, slushy, or icy pavement. Over 1,300 people are killed and 116,800 people are injured due to road conditions in the winter. But my question is, when will my luck run out, and will more citizens of LeGrand tragically contribute to the statistic? My movement is all about getting the city of LeGrand to take better care of their roads in the winter so that the people of this small town remain safe as possible. And now I'd like to go in more detail about how this is going to happen. My first tactic would be to gain support on social media. I would create posts like this one and share them on my personal social media platforms, as well as encouraging others to share them on theirs. And I am hoping that this would attract the attention of other EOU students, since we seem to be the most affected when streets don't get cleared. When streets are unsafe to drive on and classes are canceled due to weather, it's unfair to the students because we are paying for the education that we missed due to road conditions. I would use these flyers on social media and other places as well. Since this is a local movement, I could go around talking to business owners and try to convince them and gain their support as well. After I had their support, I would then encourage them to keep talking about this issue and to spread awareness around the community, as well as asking them to hang flyers in their business space. After I've gained more local support, the next step would be to get the attention of the people who can really make this movement a success, the City Council. A group of supporters would attend the City Council meeting on December 7th at 6 p.m. We would present facts very similar to the ones I've laid out earlier, as well as give the suggestion for the city to buy more snowplow attachments, like these ones. And they are about $1,500 each. And then I would also suggest the city to first ask for volunteers who would be willing to help clear streets on extra snowy days. And then if that didn't work, I would suggest for them to offer some sort of monetary reward. If we were then to be faced with backlash, the next step I would suggest is a sit-in at City Hall, or as I would like to nickname it, a snow-in. This would show the City Council that this is a serious issue that the citizens of LeGrand and students at EOU care about. Overall, this city needs to care about the road conditions and needs to actively be taking steps in keeping their people safe. This movement would use social media, word of mouth, and face-to-face communication to get the main points across and to make this movement successful. Thank you. And then here are links to my sources.
I think that this was very nicely done. I really liked all the images that you've done. It's super creative in that aspect. And it was nice to kind of actively see, because obviously we know winters are not good, but you know, whenever kind of relates them to the driving conditions and why are they so bad. So it was nice to see and kind of be educated more on this mission. Thank you.
Yeah, this was super clever, super creative, and I think really well thought out. I love the little details you had here about the snow-in, the proposed solutions, the engagement with the City Council. You know, really, really well thought out. And, you know, really good example about how this kind of social movement communication and advocacy can be really local and be really situated, you know, really network on those particular solutions. It's also, of course, a really relatable thing for a lot of folks here who have kind of dealt with all this, people who are trying to get back after the Thanksgiving break and dealing with all of that travel. Like conditions out here get wild, and you know, moving from Salt Lake City where we got a lot of snow, but we got a lot of infrastructure to deal with that snow, and not having that same level of support here. I think that a lot of these points ring really true, and I think are really well developed as well. I was uninjured, but was in a rollover on the ice last year coming down I-84. So definitely share that desire for wanting to have the better infrastructure. So really, really good work here. Great engagement and use of examples and really creatively presented. Thank you so much for doing all of that. All right.
You just click the space bar.
So you can do the arrows or the space bar for them.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so we're moving right along, and yeah, we'll have you here next.
Awesome. All right. So
I'm Yaya. And then for my presentation, I decided to focus on student athletes' mental health. And the reason why I decided to do that is because as a student athlete here, I was someone who did struggle with my mental health and wasn't aware of the resources I had prior to that until I went through the experience I went through. So some facts is that 33% of college students will actually experience symptoms of mental health problems. Of that 33%, only 10% of collegiate student athletes will actually seek help. Now, what's the problem with that is that not addressing mental health problems can lead to suicide, low performance in the classroom and within their sport, depression, loss of interest, and overtraining, which can then lead to burnout. So for my creative movement, I decided to create a student athlete mental health event. And this was a flyer that I created. And so you would be hosting a student athlete mental health event. And this is a mental health event that would occur monthly. It would be the first Friday of every month at 5 p.m. And then the where would be Quinn Coliseum. And then I put down a contact email that could be used with questions. And so some more information about the event is that it would be monthly. And then the reason why it's monthly is because I believe that it's important for student athletes to talk about their mental health on a regular basis. And this event would be a place where student athletes can comfortably and confidently talk about their mental health. And in the event, we'll be discussing the resources that are available for student athletes that are on campus and off campus, such as helplines and counselors. The use of personal narratives would be used, and this is a topic that we discussed in lecture, and that would include the peers sharing their stories along with professional or well-known athletes coming in and talking. The use of personal narratives is important because it shows to student athletes who might not be comfortable or confident talking about their mental health that it's okay what they're going through, and there's help out there that can allow them that they can access in order to help them out. So for forms of communication, I use social media, and that would be Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. On that social media, I would share information about the meetings, such as the where and the when. And on that social media page, we'd also be posting regularly, such as posts tied to mental health and resources that are available for student athletes. The use of flyers and emails would be used as well as a way to communicate and remind student athletes when the event is and where it is. With social media, I also was wanting to and planning to post videos and pictures of the events in order to encourage other student athletes to either continue attending or to be encouraged to attend. So normalizing mental health is something I want to work on. With doing an event as such, there will be people who will disagree with the event and think that it's not helpful. The plan for that is to continue educating people on what mental health is and make it a topic that can be discussed. So student athletes' mental health should be discussed consistently. Right now, it's a topic that's only discussed when sadly another student athlete commits suicide, and then we talk about mental health right after that, and then it's forgotten as if the problem is solved, which isn't the case. Eastern Oregon University should consistently be demonstrating to their student athletes that their mental health matters and that they have resources available on campus and off campus. Student athletes should know that they have the support from the university, from their peers, from their coaches, and that they're not alone. With the movement, the goal is to allow to teach student athletes that they have tools available that they can use in order to help improve their mental health problems, which can allow them to be successful in the classroom and within their sport. With my social movement, my goal is that EOU has the ability to save lives and make an impact in student athletes' lives. And these were my resources. Yeah. That's it.
So I really appreciated not only your engagement on the importance of student athlete mental health, but also your kind of discussion about addressing and kind of being responsive to pushback, and particularly in regards to continuing the message, continuing the narrative, and continually offering that support, right? One of the big strategies of a lot of movements like this one is this really major focus on normalization, on destigmatization, and continuing to reinforce the importance of this topic. And through doing so, continuing to make a space in which people are comfortable and able to share and disclose their experiences. So I really appreciated the way that you integrated that element in there to really talk about that longevity and the use of regular, like monthly meetings and spaces that allow that to continue and map out that longer term. So really good use of some of those examples and applications there. Okay, so next up we have.
Okay, so I decided to do my movement on book banning as I think it is an issue that is becoming more prevalent within public school systems, and it is something that I'm incredibly passionate about and interested in. So to start off, what is book banning? Elizabeth Yuko of Reader's Digest defines it as the act of removing materials from a school or library's collection as a result of objections from groups or individuals who say that they need to protect others, typically children, from the difficult information or ideas contained in the books. So from the definition itself, this doesn't seem like a huge issue. So what is the problem with banning books? First of all, it's sheltering children from the real world. At some point, they will learn about topics like queerness, sexuality, and religion, as well as experience them firsthand. Parents cannot control their children as much as they think they can, especially with the internet at the children's disposal. Young readers can either know what they're getting themselves into through the synopsis of the novel, or find the more problematic topics on the internet or in real life without any warning beforehand. Next, it's erasing the more questionable and gory parts of our history. While yes, saying slurs is not acceptable, at one point they were said without second thought on the matter. We need to learn from our mistakes of our past and how are our children meant to do that if the past is being censored? Black and queer individuals are common victims of violence, and having books that portray that, like Angie Thomas's The Hate U Give, is helpful for children to understand and put into perspective just how bad things are for those individuals. And for those of you who don't know, The Hate U Give is an extremely commonly banned novel due to the profanity and promotion of anti-police messages. Finally, politics are often brought to attention when discussing book banning and what books to ban. 26% of banned and challenged books are challenged for religious viewpoints, while 23.5% are challenged for having LGBTQ+ content. These are both heavily political topics, and because of the opposing viewpoints, they tend to be banned a lot. So how do I intend to combat this issue? Firstly, social media is huge in this day and age. So talking about this issue on platforms like TikTok and YouTube is a great way to gain attention and expand upon the audience. Next, using influencers, specifically authors, talking about banning their books is another great way of informing people about this issue. So that picture is taken from a TikTok that the author John Green created when he was frustrated by his first novel, Looking for Alaska, being banned in his hometown for, and I quote, pornography. Finally, having a presentation using space and place to further outreach and understanding would also be incredibly beneficial for this movement. I was thinking about having a gathering outside of a public school with the top banned and challenged book surrounding the entrance, along with flyers informing why books are banned and the arguments against banning those books. This would be a peaceful, answering questions and explaining why the issue should be further looked into. By doing this outside a public school entrance, parents would pass by and notice upon dropping off their children, which would hopefully bring about questions, and then we could inform them further. For the older children who don't have parents dropping them off, they gain the opportunity to be able to educate themselves and choose if they think it is ethical or not to ban books. I will leave you all off with this quote from John Green's TikTok about those who are banning books. So he states, "What they're trying to do is restrict the liberty of other people's kids to read what librarians and teachers deem appropriate for those other people's kids to read." And those are my references.
Thanks, Kate. Questions or comments? So, yeah, so my sister is a middle school language arts teacher and has dealt with a lot of these challenges in kind of defining books and, considering what curriculum to offer to students based on a lot of the restrictions that become imposed by district and state. And, as you bring in, I think that not only in framing the topic and why it's a problem or issue, and like using that front element to define the issue, but also in talking about the use of social media, the use of specific examples and applications. I think it's really able to speak to how that movement can be used and understood effectively. I really like, for example, how you brought in the social media engagement from John Green, right? You get an author in who is implicated and directly involved in this, speaking about and addressing this issue too. And I think that lending to that credibility through that participation is a really important element as well. And bring in those elements of space and place too, using that as part of making the argument, I think really effectively to help to frame and understand what all is going on. So really great work there, really good use of examples here and applications that help us to better understand what all is going on there. So really, thank you for getting all of that and helping us to better understand how this movement plays out. All right, so Raviti, we have you up next. Are you here and available?
Yeah.
Great. Do you have the ability to share screen?
Yeah, I can do that.
Perfect. Just double checking. Okay, so we have you here on Zoom, and then feel free to share and fire things up, and whenever you're ready.
Oh, it actually says screen sharing is disabled.
Okay, let me uncheck that for you. Give it a try now.
Okay, cool.
Awesome. Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name's Raviti. And my creative movement is about criminal justice reform through mental health. So to begin, why focus on mental health? There's two parts to this answer. The first one is that people with a mental illness are 3 times more likely than the general population to be arrested. And the second one is that correlations between mental illness and crime show patterns that call for a course of action. So overall, mental health is a factor that resides in criminal justice reform, and you can't really advocate for criminal justice reform without bringing up the discussion of mental health. So I wanted to talk about the subaltern studies theory because it relates really heavily to my social movement. So firstly, criminals are often excluded from speaking about their own experiences. This is something that I've noticed on a personal level as well, because I see people on social media and just activists in protests talking about criminal justice reform, but I feel like we don't really hear about the actual experiences or things like interviews from people who are actually living through the system. Criminal justice reform deals with the unlearning of preconceived notions. So race, socioeconomics, etc., are all factors that can impact whether a person commits crimes or not. And talking to people in the system can really open our eyes and shed light on these factors rather than staying in our little circles and advocating that way. Communicating with people who are in jail is important because they're often excluded from the discussion, as I mentioned. And reform and treatment is important to listen to people who are actually going through it. And I want to bring attention to the fact that at least 1 in 6 prisoners in the United States has a mental illness. So it really puts into perspective how much they go through, because if someone already has a mental illness and they're put into that system, it can be aggravated, or their coping mechanisms can be taken away from them because of that harsh environment. So for my course of action, what I would do is use social media, email, etc., to better mental health resources in school. As I mentioned before, people who commit crimes, sometimes in some instances, they're not given resources prior to that crime, meaning they didn't really grow up with access to adequate resources, whether that's in schools, in their neighborhoods, or communities. So I think that putting out surveys for students in order to gain feedback could really normalize mental health resources for students in their lives. And this, it kind of conditions us to reach out for help when we need it. And if we're coping with something like a mental illness, it gives healthy coping mechanisms so that we don't turn to things like petty crime or theft to cope with it. And another big one that I mentioned was including inmates in the discussion. This would help us evaluate what resources are necessary on an individual rather than collective level, because I think that talking to inmates one-on-one puts a face to the numbers. We see statistics and the numbers on paper, but we don't really see who it's about. So I think that communicating with inmates that way could really help us out. We can also, communicating on social media and web articles is another way to inform people, because some inmates actually have access to the internet. And so communicating that way could include them in the conversation rather than exclude them, as previously stated. And this provides a connection between mental health and our individual lives in order to show people how important it is. So further humanizing the situation rather than focusing on the numbers. And lastly, I want to draw attention to the picture at the bottom. It says, the prison environment is almost diabolically conceived to force the offender to experience the pangs of what many psychiatrists would describe as mental illness. So again, imagining someone who already has a mental illness in the first place and putting them in this environment where they're not really allowed to cope with what they're going through, it's really harmful. And I know some people might disagree and say that they deserved it or they put themselves there, but the thing is, it's inhumane, and we should really have a course of action to mitigate this. And those are my sources. Thank you.
Questions or comments for the meeting? So what I really liked that you incorporated really well in this presentation was this application of subaltern study theory, right? Because as we talked about, if you think about subaltern studies and about what it's saying, it's not only the experience of marginalization, but as you bring up the challenges that people have in their inability to receive the support or ability to speak about their marginalization. So I think applying that to discuss individuals experiencing incarceration and the sort of mental health impacts that can have, I think were really powerful and important ways that you were able to connect that to the ideas in the course. I also really like the way that you were integrating some of these examples, such as the use of social media and the circulation of that factual information in a way that reaches people who otherwise are not aware of the issue, right? Like a lot of the work that you all are doing in these presentations, it's raising and identifying a problem for a population of people for whom that problem or issue is not something they would otherwise have on their radar at all. So I really appreciated the way that you were incorporating those details to try to understand and make aware for us what the issues were that we're going on. So thank you so much for bringing that in for your presentation. Okay, so up next we have Kiana. Should be all set for you. Are you ready?
So I did my social movement on safe-sex education and the power of safe-sex education. And I kind of was willing to do this because I grew up like in the education system, and I grew up around people that were involved in the education system. And so I find this really important to advocate for. So we're just going to kind of talk about the overturn of Roe v. Wade, and also some statistics in education on my movement, the opposition that follows, and also my social movement plan. So one thing that was triggered very recently was the Roe v. Wade overturn. This happened June 24th, 2022. And so this trigger basically allowed for abortion bans that were implemented in many states, basically diminishing sexual and reproductive rights for a lot of people in the US, including, most importantly, women. They also medically indicated abortions were also illegal in these selected states. And no matter what your views are on this, I think that it's really good to be like solution oriented. So no matter like if you believe in this or if you don't believe in this, we need to have solutions to combat what is being taken away. So I just want to talk about some key points about high quality sexual education. Some of these points are like really important to teach starting in kindergarten. Obviously not all of them. You want to filter that throughout the education process, but that's why this is a process. Like you're not just going to teach sexual education in just like one grade. You want it to be incorporated all throughout your schooling. And so some of these topics would include consent and body autonomy. And autonomy is basically the right of self-government, especially in this day and age where you're getting the choice to, when some people are getting the choice to their bodies. It's important to teach this. Also human anatomy and reproductive organs, basic, just like how reproductive organs work. Also inclusion of sexual orientation, gender identity, and ability. That is something that has over the past few years has been brought up, and I think that is important to include these people so that reproductive rights can be educated to all. Also STD and pregnancy prevention and protection, and communication and relationship skills. So benefits of quality sex education would include the delay of the initiation of sexual intercourse. I feel like when you're not educated on something, you become like more curious about it, and so this is leading to like teen pregnancies. It'll also decrease STD and pregnancy risk. There will also be fewer unprotected sex experiences and increased use of protection such as condoms. And also youth can understand and imply consent when needed, creating boundaries. I really think this last topic is very important for kids in elementary ed. I think knowing the rights to your body and knowing who can touch you and who can't is very important, especially for like the youth. And a statistic here is that fewer than half of high schools, 43%, and less than 1/5 of middle schools, 18%, teach proper health education. And I've really seen that. I grew up in Idaho, so I grew up in a state where like abstinence was highly taught, just because of the political views out there. And so I definitely feel like I was lacking in a lot of sexual education courses, especially in middle school and high school, where I think this is the most prevalent. So people who would be in opposition to this is state legislation, as well as SRA, which is the Sexual Risk Avoidance Program. These programs basically teach abstinence and that's about it when it comes to sexual education. And these programs have been proven to be failures in the past. And when implementing abstinence, the education taught by these programs has just led to higher teen pregnancies and higher STD levels. And also, of course, parents in opposition to teaching sexual education, that can also limit this movement. So this is obviously already a social movement, but I wanted to kind of like bring more advocacy to it, because I think it's talked a lot about, but there hasn't been like a ton of steps going towards this movement. So if I were to start steps for this movement and become an advocate for it, I'd want to start and organize community support So a coalition basically made of health educators, health professionals, as well as teachers and administrators. And of course, we would want students there as well, just to show that there is a mass of people who do support this movement. Also, I think parent involvement is going to be really, really important for this movement to be successful. Allowing the parents to have involvement in the sex education courses, as well as educating parents and preparing them for what their students could learn in the curriculum. I think also giving parents the chance to talk to their kids before they do go to school and learn this curriculum is really important as well. So getting their feedback and also just letting them know that we will be teaching like age appropriate material. And then also just encouraging school board involvement in elections. Voting is obviously very important in this country. So involving the public in debate and disclosure concerning sex education curriculum will also lead to a better change in the social movement.
Questions or comments on Kiana's presentation?
I really like the thought for the sticker and wondering what side this type of problem. And I think it is something considered, and the people who oppose it, it's a lot of the times schools itself. I had a class last year and an individual tried to do just plain research about how it would be best to complete these forms of education with people. And I know around this area specifically, it's super hard to get that questionnaire out to people because the schools and the superintendents are super opposed to those types of topics. So it is definitely something that needs to be done.
Yeah, I really agree that kind of I think sensitive way with which you engage the topic and also the way that you kind of push the discussion forward, I think was really good. Not only in terms of talking about, this is the landscape of the world following the, overturn of Roe v. Wade. Here's where we're at in terms of what sex education and information is available and circulating, but also in your discussion about how to incorporate coalitions and bring in, for instance, the experiences of health experts to engage in school board meetings to find the spaces and opportunities for inclusion and participation and bringing in relevant experience from people like health experts, I thought was a really good way for us to see how, like oftentimes this is a topic that feels very like we're spinning our wheels in disagreement and debate and it's not going anywhere. And I like the way that you were able to push that topic forward, a kind of tangible approach or solution to better engage and create that community involvement and awareness that might not otherwise exist. So I really appreciated the way you were integrating that material to engage and help us to see how that movement would play out. So really good work and incorporating those elements and bringing that in for this presentation. All right. So we have two more patients. So Laura up next. Should be all set. So whenever you're ready.
Alrighty. So the social movement I decided to focus on or do with to get benefits for field workers. So a couple of things I do want to talk about is the work conditions, the importance of agriculture here in the US, the benefits and the advocating ideas that I had, as well as like my conclusion and sources. So working conditions. So field workers often, this is just a temporary job, it's seasonal. It can be 4 to 5 months of the year. And I did some research from this summer. And in Portland alone, the highest was 116 degrees. And that was just in Portland. We all know that Portland is a bit cooler than here in the dry areas.
can only imagine how much hotter it was here. And 25 days of the summer was over 90 degrees. So due to the heat, one can get heat strokes, heat exhaustion, dehydration, as well as brain and mental can damage brain mental health. And because of working in these fields, they can be exposed to chemicals. And a lot of the working tasks that these field workers do is they can be lifting more than 50 pounds, which is like they can be carrying boxes, they can be carrying buckets, and they are bent down 85% of the time. And working times. These field workers work. They work from 6 to 3:30, depending on how hot it'll get. Sometimes they are able to leave a little early, but that is almost 10 hours a day, and that is Monday through Saturday. And they're paid in housing. They get paid 16 from what I did some research in Hermiston. And they are given terrible living conditions. A lot of the living conditions have mold. They do not have great roofing or air conditioning and heating. So how important is agriculture? It is the world's largest industry. It generates over $1.3 trillion, and it provides food and fabrics. And within this like field workers industry, I guess in the agriculture, 73% of those are immigrants. And some of the benefits that I want to advocate for is healthcare benefits for these field workers. They can get some long-term injuries because of working in the fields. So that could help with their injuries and medications. And housing, up-to-date buildings or building new housing for them that meets the requirements. And then pay, I think it should be up to $20 an hour, and then higher for overtime, because obviously they are working more than 40 hours a week. And a couple ways advocating ideas is using social media platforms, petitions, and handouts. So the social media platforms I wanted to use was Instagram and Facebook. Instagram because it's for like a younger audience, and because most of these field workers are immigrants, they most likely would fear, protesting against that, and fears that they might be sent back. So I think as a younger generation of immigrants and the general public, they would represent them. And of course, you can easily share the information, as well as Facebook. Facebook is really popular among the Hispanic community, so I think it would get the word around to them as well. And petitions, there are online petitions that I would use, and handouts that we can do here on the EOU campus. Again, we are a younger generation, and using this opportunity would be very good. And these are my reasons. Thank you.
Questions or comments on our presentation? I really enjoyed, what I'm noticing in a lot of your presentation work is the ability to make populations aware about issues that may not have crossed their minds, you might not have had personal relationship or proximity to. Like a lot of the framing you did early on, like the statistical information about how awful a lot of these conditions are, with needing to bend over, and really the health effects that has, are things that for many of us who might not have that direct experience, or people we know in that experience, just would be totally off the radar for us. So not only providing that information, but also making really deliberate choices about the social media you're using and why you're choosing that. I think that you did a great job of kind of exploring what some of the benefits of using different social media platforms were. I think a lot of times we tend to think about engaging in social media through a movement, but making specific choices about which platforms we're using for which purpose and which audiences we're hoping to reach through that. I really enjoyed that step in terms of kind of bridging that gap of both the vulnerable status of many of the workers, but also helping us to imagine ways that we can get involved and support perhaps a population that is in a particularly precarious or vulnerable state in regards to that movement too. So I really enjoyed your work. All right. So our final presentation of the day, and definitely not least, yes, Ingma. So we'll just wait a quick moment.
You guys have really serious topics. Makes me feel very out of place.
Great.
Again,
I think on a lighter note is good.
good afternoon, everyone. I apologize for my voice. Anything I do, it's out of place because I was like sick during the weekend and I'm still recovering. So, yeah, my name is Nigma Moses, and from my create a social movement, I will be presenting my Night Skin social movement. So before I start with this, I want to give a little word first why I chose this. So although this movement is intended to represent Black anime fans, I want to also have this as an inspiration to those who feel like an outside group in terms of media appreciation. Like, I like this thing, but technically my kind is not supposed to like these kind of things. Like, it gives people like comfort, and I know there's a right word for that, but I'll get to it later. So yes, that's 2 slides. What is the Night Skin social movement? It is a positive social media movement. It is non-violent and it is a fan-driven. And before I get more in depth into the movement, I want to give a little background for why this movement came to be. So it all started when there was a racial slur given to Black anime fans. They called them night skins within the social medias. And the Black community took that word and used it as like a word of empowerment. And they use it like in hashtags when they did fan art, cosplays, and animation that you tend to see online. So the earliest knowings of this word was when Crunchyroll announced the voice cast, an English dub voice cast for the season 2 of Love Live Nigasaki High School Idol Club. It was one of the roles for the voice actors were given to a Black man, in which a lot of the community, especially fans of that, were highly against that. They were like, I don't think that is right for that person to be voice acting for this person. There was a lot of controversy, even like on Twitter, you would see people saying that these people are not fit to play these characters. It's just not right. That is why I want to pursue this social movement to change people's minds, especially those who feel like they must gatekeep or say that this is meant for this and you guys are not allowed to take part in it. And that is the goal for my movement. It focuses on the issues of racism, gatekeeping, and self-representation. So in order to work for these goals, solve the issues, I have 4 strategies. 2 of these, as you see, these ones are already implemented. There is drawings and animations that people have done of characters, whether it be original or kind of like a Black version of an already made character. And there are those people who do cosplays. You can find these in many social media sites like Reddit, DeviantArt. You guys are familiar with those. They just post photos, drawings, pictures that they've done for other people in the community to view. And the two strategies that I wish to implement are social gatherings like marches, but not like protests where they have like riots or like more aggressive styles. I want it to be like a convention, but because of how enclosed a convention is, though, with indoors like Comic-Cons, you guys are familiar with those, they don't typically go out and show everyone that this is what we like, this is, and such. There's also social media challenges I want to pursue, because just like the Ice Bucket Challenge, it went from promoting, I know they were promoting something, but then it ended up being a very popular challenge throughout the internet when everyone was taking part in it, giving it a global presence. So everyone knew about it. So my social movement can help against these. It can help people who are against the movement change their mind and perspective to, okay, no, maybe gatekeeping and not telling these people is wrong. Because obviously with this social movement can give people personal comfort with their body, with their identity, like, okay, I'm this, but I can play the role of the character that I want. It also gives them self-representation in the same matter. And with that, it gives diversity to a community, to a media, gives everyone a chance. And as you know, media representation is what shapes reality. If people tend to see that this is normal, this is not weird, then everyone can be happy. And yeah, these are my sources.
Like if you really love that, because there's a lot of animals you can see. I noticed that when you think about it, like drag washing, it's like what they, like their version of like representing, you know, color, the color community, you know.
Yeah. And, you know, you had mentioned Go Again, maybe this wasn't the most serious topic, but it does have a lot of those like serious and important implications when you're connecting it to kind of racism, the challenges and experiences that members of a community might experience. You know, I think that this is a topic that's both engaged in like, you know, fan-based campaigns and movements, but also one that's, you know, really deeply connected to those issues. I really like the way that you were forming that connection, highlighting, I think, in many ways that we might not be aware of the challenges of the kind of bullying and harassment and racially targeted language that people experience online. And I also really like the way that your solutions kind of connecting to this fan-based social movement. You're talking about how participation at things like conventions and events, like thematically makes sense given the interest in this subject matter and, you know, other types of events people might go to, but you're pairing that with that goal and that movement too. So I found that your integration of those ideas that we were talking about in the term was really smart. And I felt like it was a great way to incorporate participation that made sense for the movement that you were choosing. So really great work. And thank you for wrapping us up for our presentations for today. So I really enjoyed having the chance to see you all share. I can really tell that these are topics that you're interested in, that you're passionate about, that you put a lot of effort into in terms of imagining what that would look like, what you can do. And of course, in this class, you know, you're not being asked to go out and do it, but that's not a reason that you can't, right? You're welcome. And I encourage you, if this is a topic that you want to explore further and you want to push further, you're welcome to continue to explore. And I hope that you feel empowered and that you have resources that can help you in kind of continuing to advocate for issues that you find to be really new. So again, I really appreciated the presentations and some of the observations you all had as we were working through these. So That wraps up our presentations. Remember that the write-up portion of those is going to be due on the 14th. So our last class meeting of the term is going to be this Wednesday over in Badgley. So I will send a Canvas announcement out that just confirms the room number and helps to visually show where that room is located. I did reserve the larger space since I'll be inviting some people in from other classes. If you know anybody that's available and interested in seeing ORA on Wednesday, you're welcome to invite them. They'll be talking a little bit about some of the communication strategies that they do locally. I encourage you to bring in the questions that you might have and would like to ask of them after we hear their presentation. And that'll wrap up our term on Wednesday. So thank you for that. You will receive attendance just on the basis of being here and presenting for the day. So nothing else that you need to do to confirm that. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Enjoy again the tiny bits of daylight that we have. And I will see you over in Badgley on Wednesday.